Hello, in this video I will be teaching you how to do blackwork embroidery. An example of blackwork embroidery is this coif that I made. Blackwork embroidery is also known as reversible stitch or Holbein stitch, and that's because the inside is to look similar if not identical to the outside, therefore making it reversible. Before you get started with doing your blackwork, first you want to decide on which pattern you would like. These are some examples of patterns found on a 16th century Italian sampler in the Victoria and Albert Museum in London. These patterns are available online at dragonlore.net. Once you decide on your pattern, you also want to get your linen. You want to get your frame. I highly recommend a slate frame, which is a square frame. However, if you do not have a slate frame available, slate frames are period. But if you do not have one available, you can use a round frame like this. The only bad side to using a round frame like this is it will warp your linen and you won't have as good tension as you would have in a slate frame. Next, you want to decide on what type of silk thread you would like to use. This is Gutermann silk thread, bought at Joann Fabrics. You could probably purchase it at any fabric store. The good thing with Gutermann silk thread is that it is machine washable. The downside to it, it is very thin, and you cannot see it very well on your embroidered piece from far away. But on the plus side, it doesn't fray. This is another example of silk thread. This is twisted silk thread that I bought from Hedgehog Handworks. It doesn't fray, but I still recommend using a little bit of beeswax on the end just to make sure. It's not shiny, but it is thicker than the Gutermann. Here's a third example of silk thread. This is Untwisted silk thread, also bought from Hedgehog Handworks. It's very shiny. The downside to it is the ends tend to fray very easily, and with this I would highly recommend using beeswax on the end. I do not know if either the twisted or the untwisted bought from the Hedgehog Handworks are machine washable. I would highly recommend to hand wash them. If you really want your piece to be machine washable, then I do recommend the Gutermann silk thread. Now, once you have your pattern, your fabric, your frame, and your thread, then it is almost time to get started. You also want to decide how big or how small you want your stitches. To give you an idea, on this sampler that I did, these stitches are every third hole in the linen fabric. This flower is a similar size or a similar style of flower. The difference is where this is every third hole, this is every fifth hole. So if that helps give you an idea if you want something small or big for your piece. Now to get started, I have decided to, for teaching purposes, I am going to do this second pattern right here. And I've got my needle, I've got my thread, and normally you only want to do a single thread. The only time you want to do a double thread, I think, is when you want a dramatic look, if you want it to be more bold. Then to get started, you find which spot you want to start at and pull your thread through, but you don't want to pull it all the way through. You want to make sure you have a little bit of a tail and hold on to it because you're going to weave it into the back side of your pattern. And then from here, I'm going to count over 5 holes. Let's see, 3. And then once I count over 5 holes, I pull my needle through. Make sure you don't pull all the way or pull your tail all the way through. Now, I'm going to count over 5 more holes. So 3, 4, 5. Now, as I pull this one through, I'm going to flip it to the back side and make sure that my tail is woven into my thread. This will help secure my thread, so as I continue to embroider, it will not unravel. And see, I have now secured it. And then from here, I'm going to do another 5 holes. And do the same thing again. Count over 5 holes. Flip it to the back side. And I want to get my tail woven in. And then once I know it's in there, then I pull tight. And sometimes I like to pull my tail tight just to make sure that it works. And then from here, I'm going to do my first up stitch. As you can see, already I'm doing every other stitch. So as you continue to work your piece, it looks more like a dotted line. And then this is known as the first journey. And then once you finish your first journey, then you will go backwards and fill in all of your spaces to make one continuous looking line. So from here, I'm going to go up 5 spaces diagonally. As you can see, I like to use my needle to as my placeholder as I count my threads to make sure that I've counted up and over the right number of spaces that I need. And I do the same thing from underneath the linen. I don't know if you're able to see my needle or not, where I count up 1, 2, 3. And then once I know I'm in the hole, I'm going to tuck my tail into my thread again. And then pull my thread tight. You always want to make sure that your threads are nice and tight, that way you have good tension on your fabric. Otherwise, if your threads are loose, then your thread on the back side can come loose, plus also it just looks sloppy. And then from here, if you see on the pattern, I've gone up 1, up 2, diagonally. Now I'm going to go vertically up 1, horizontally over 1, and then vertically down 1, and then I will return back the way I came and then do the same thing on the right side. So from here, I'm going to go up 5 vertically. Now I'm going to use my needle on the back side and count over 5 horizontally. And if you have done this all correctly, this hole, this stitch up here, should be in the same line as the stitch down here. That way everything looks very even and everything is geometrically pleasing. And then with my next stitch, it should be horizontally, it should be in line with this stitch right here, and it should also be in line with that stitch right there. And then I'm going to go back up to my first stitch, and I just realized I went through the wrong hole. I went 1 up too far, so I'm going to stick my needle in and pull back out and go back through the correct hole. And see, pull tight there, and then go through there, and then come back through here. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. I'm going to count over 5 holes. And then I'm going to count down 5 holes. And again, this stitch right here should be in line with the stitch up here and also with the stitch over here. If things do not line up perfectly, then you need to go back and count your holes, because somewhere you either may have added one too many holes or not enough. And now I'm going to go back the way I came, and I'm going to go up and over, down, and now I am back to my original line. And from here I'm going to count over 5 holes. And count over 5 holes again. And as you can see, this stitch right here is in line with that stitch there. Everything runs evenly and perfectly. And I pull it through. And it helps to go back to your pattern and make sure you're doing everything correctly. On this specific pattern, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in between each little, I guess, leaf. So as you can see, I've done 1. On the back side there's 2. On the front side 3. So I need 4 and 5. So I'm counting over 5 holes. That's number 4. Once you have come to the end of your line of your first journey, then it's time to fill in the blanks. And from here you just go back the way you came and fill in the blanks. This is actually a lot easier because you don't have to count spaces anymore. You just have to make sure you get in the same hole that your original stitch is in. And as I fill in my line, not only does it look like one continuous line on the front side, but if I flip it on the back side, here, I'll do it right side up, it looks exactly the same on the back, just the mirror image of what was on the front. I hope you had fun learning about blackwork, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.